Over the last 15 years, plans for one of the most significant infrastructure projects in Africa have been centered around the Blue Nile River. The Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam aims to produce a staggering 6,450 megawatts of electricity of peak power output. This represents 3 times the capacity of the Hoover Dam, and will place the GERD in the top 10 of largest power-creating dams on the planet. Importantly, for Ethiopia, it will also start them on a journey towards becoming a superpower in the area, making the country a regional energy exporter, massively improving their influence on the geopolitical stage, enhancing their global position, and driving commercial operation with its neighbors near and far. The dam is the central pillar of Ethiopia's economic development strategy, driving industrial growth, creating thousands of jobs, and reducing the crippling poverty in the country. It's estimated that the dam could generate anything up to $2 billion per year from exported energy sales. In a country with 26 million people currently living below the poverty line and 15% of the total population in extreme poverty, this project could raise Ethiopia's prospects as fast as the waterline. But the waters of this project are muddied by lots of challenges and obstacles. The flow of events is anything but simple, with political tensions rising high, centuries-old arguments over water rights, major environmental concerns, and some pretty big technical hurdles to overcome. Could the effects of the Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam break the banks of political instability in the area before it's even complete? In September 2024, Egypt sent a letter to the United Nations Security Council rejecting Ethiopia's progress with the dam, in particular the filling of the huge reservoir. This is an immense structure that will eventually hold 74 billion cubic meters of water. Covering a space of 724 square miles and standing 145 meters high, this colossal reservoir is progressing at an impressive speed without full cooperation from neighboring states. And that means tensions are rising. And at the center of it all is an argument regarding ownership of the most basic human resource, the rights to water. Beginning in Lake Tana, almost 600 feet above sea level in the Ethiopian highlands, it traverses 900 miles of rugged landscape and gorges before joining the White Nile at Khartoum, Sudan. This is where it forms the river Nile proper. The Blue Nile contributes approximately 80% of the water that flows into the Nile, as one of 2 major tributaries to the most famous river in the world. This makes it essential for the fertility of the whole river ecosystem in the area, providing opportunities for life, settlements, commercial enterprises, and ultimately power. Egypt's relationship with the Nile is one of the most important elements of human history. It has played a leading role in the birth of civilizations, engineering, farming, and technology for thousands of years. Dating back to 5,000 years BC, the annual flooding of the river left behind deposits of nutrient-rich silt on the land that allowed for stable farming and the establishment of human societies. These communities paved the way for kingdoms, and there were none bigger or more enduring than the Pharaonic. The timeless cities of Thebes, Memphis, and Cairo grew almost entirely because of their proximity to the river. The Giza Plateau, home to perhaps the most important and recognizable man-made structures our world has ever seen, the Great Pyramids, is only 5 miles west of the river and was chosen precisely for its location. It became a vital transportation link for the building materials of limestone and granite that were the foundation of those wonders of the world. Little surprise then that the Nile, and the Blue Nile River that feeds it, is a hugely symbolic and culturally significant presence in the fabric of Egypt. It still holds a sacred status as the symbol of life and eternity. The quote from the Greek historian Herodotus rings as true today as it did thousands of years ago. Egypt is the gift of the Nile. In the 21st century, Egypt relies on the Nile for 80% of its fresh water supply for drinking, agriculture, and industry in a country that has extremely limited rainfall or access to other freshwater resources. With a rapidly growing population, now well over 100 million, Egypt now faces severe water scarcity, with their per capita water supply at around 550 cubic meters per year. This is well below the 1,000 cubic meter threshold that officially defines water scarcity. Add to this a reliance on fishing and their own economic development, and it is little wonder that any attempts to stem the flow of the Nile, almost 1,500 miles upstream, have been greeted with suspicion and alarm by Egypt. They feel that a lack of international regulation, guidance, and compliance is only confounding their anxiety and fears. The water rights to the Nile tell a story littered with echoes of the British Empire and an uneven distribution between the countries and people that rely upon it. In 1929, the Nile Waters Agreement was signed by Egypt and Great Britain on behalf of its colonies that included Sudan. Egypt was given the majority of the Nile's waters, around 48 billion cubic meters per year, and Sudan was given around 4 billion cubic meters annually. Importantly, Egypt was also given the power to veto any upstream water projects that may impact their share. Other affected countries, such as Ethiopia, were not involved or consulted. The landlocked country suffered terribly through famine and drought over the rest of the 20th century, and resentment surely simmered. Then, in 2010, the Cooperative Framework Agreement brought together Ethiopia, Rwanda, Uganda, Tanzania, and Kenya, seeking to redistribute water rights in the area more equally without the need for Egypt's approval to develop water projects on the Blue Nile River. Egypt and Sudan refused to sign. They sensed a threat to their historic control over the water supply to the Great River. The balance of power was maybe starting to flow in a different direction. Ethiopia didn't waste any time. In April 2011, plans for the Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam were unveiled, and the foundation stone was laid just days later. Sudan's position in the saga of the Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is a little more complicated. Although they look certain to benefit from the potential flood control and cheaper electricity, they have some rather big concerns on safety. If the dam were to fail or suffer a sudden massive loss of water, the ensuing tide could cause some catastrophic problems for Sudan. Its own water control infrastructure may be compromised, with the Rosiras Dam being especially vulnerable. If it was to be overwhelmed, then there is a real potential for millions of homes to be affected through flooding and millions of people displaced through disaster. The technical challenges of a project of this size could definitely feed into the nerves around it. The dam is in the East African Rift System, a region of seismic activity where the African tectonic plate is slowly splitting into two. And consequences of such a split remained a relatively unknown entity. With such a remote and isolated location for the dam, the emergency access required could prove hampered by unpredictable terrain. Even minor faults or vulnerabilities are loaded with the potential to escalate quickly into disaster. Sustainability credentials loom large for the project too. A lot of these are concerned with downstream issues, so Egypt and Sudan are suitably concerned. Much of the water dammed by the GERD may actually just disappear. When the reservoir is full, the surface area of the water will be almost 1,200 square miles. In the scorching hot climates of the Horn of Africa, this means an awful lot of evaporation. It is estimated that this could account for water loss of up to 3 billion cubic meters per year. And the less water there is in the Blue Nile River means the less water there is in the Nile. The seasonal flooding that Egypt and Sudan rely so much upon for the nutrient-rich silt could be compromised, affecting the fertility of the soil that their agriculture industries are built with. All of which means that the ongoing diplomatic storm shows no signs of abating anytime soon. New alliances are being drawn up across the Horn of Africa and East Africa that hold the Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam as a key factor. Although it seems unlikely that this dispute will boil over into armed conflict, the frosty relations and pacts being made between countries are looking to add weight to their arguments over claims to the Nile waters. With China indirectly financing the project through a $1.2 billion loan and associated supporting work, there is now an international concern added to the pot too. Mediation is being offered from powers all over the planet. The African Union and the United States are heavily involved, with the World Bank and United Nations offering ongoing support. A path forward needs to be made soon, one that will address the historical imbalance while remaining sympathetic to all needs of all parties. But the Blue Nile River will keep on rolling. Negotiations and mediations in the region will continue in the coming months and years, trying to ensure that only water is spilled as they reach a conclusion.
Remember to hit the subscribe button and ring that bell to stay updated with our latest content. And while you're here, why not check out another one of our exciting videos? Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.